be full atheist and agnostic at the same time. Again, that's what I was trying to explain, that these are not mutually exclusive, right? If you're an agnostic, that doesn't mean that you're not full atheist. If you're agnostic, you could be actually full atheist and full agnostic at the same time. This is the reason why some people think that there's a mutual these are mutually exclusive, is because they think that the definition of an atheist is somebody who says there is no God. No, the definition of atheist is not somebody who says there is no God. The definition of an atheist is somebody who says, I don't believe in God. Okay. There's a difference between saying there is no God and I don't believe in God. You could say that's one of them is a positive claim and the other one isn't. If you say, I don't believe in God, that's not the claim that there is no God. That's just you saying that I don't believe. There might be, like, if you prove it to me, I believe it, but I don't believe it. I'm not making my own claim. I'm not accepting a claim, but I'm not making my. So the claim there is no God is a claim itself. But the claim I don't believe in a God is not a claim of itself. It just means that I have not yet accepted a claim, right? So we have Gnostic atheists and we have agnostic atheists. Gnostic atheist is somebody who claims there is no God. Agnostic atheist is somebody who just says, I don't believe in a God, but doesn't go as far as saying there is no God, right? So, to me specifically, whether I'm an agnostic atheist or a Gnostic atheist depends on the God, depends on how you define God. There's certain gods where if you define them in a way that are self contradictory, then towards that God, I am Gnostic atheist. Like if you define a God in a way that I could show you, well, based on this definition, this God is self contradictory, I will go as far as saying I'm a Gnostic atheist to that God. I will make the claim that God doesn't exist. But there's certain gods that are defined in a way that are unfalsifiable, in my opinion. So there is no evidence that they exist, but you can't. But at the same time, you can't actually go and prove that God doesn't exist, right? They have been cleverly defined in a way that are not provable, but can't also be rejected. So towards that God, I'm an agnostic atheist towards that God, meaning that I don't believe in them, but I wouldn't go as far as making a claim myself, right? Again, Carl Sagan's Dragon in the Garage, the flying teapot. There's so many different examples to demonstrate that. I'm not going to go into that, Russell's teapot and everything like that. But I think some people here are familiar with those examples. Okay, so let me go to the second, rejecting religion and faith. Yep, that's true. Some people reject religion, but they don't reject God. I completely agree with you on that. And those are your views, that you reject religion, you don't reject God. Yep, so that's your view, which is fine. Like everybody here has different views. You're saying, has the United States have the right to be based on, okay, so to me, to be Christian Judeo-Christian values. So to me, United States is based on so many different values. Like it's not just Judeo-Christian values, but unlike some other atheists, I won't deny that Judeo-Christian values are a major part of it. Like they were influential in it. But I think that there are some atheists that go towards some extreme, but there's some other people go towards other extreme. They don't. The reasonable position to have is the United States was also founded based on secularism and based on accepting, and also based on many values that have nothing to do with Christian and or Judaism, right? So the United States is very, very much also founded based on a huge part of it. In fact, in my opinion, most of it has been founded based on Enlightenment values that came out of Western Europe, which was hugely a rejection of religious values, right? So again, I'm not saying Judeo-Christian values had no influence. They did have an influence, but United States, based on what I understand, it's most of its values is based on Enlightenment values, which was a movement away from religious values, and also secular values, very secular values. And when you say, does United States have the right? Of course, it has the right to do what you mentioned because it's secular. Secular means that Christians and Jews and their values get to be part of United States, and nobody should be able to stop them. That's what secularism means. So because United States is a secular country, Christians and Jews, and unfortunately many other people, so having the right for your values to be part of United States is not dependent on whether those values are good or bad, because there's a lot of bad ideas. So like communists have the right to make their values part of the United States. Muslims have the right to make their values part of United States, right? Like when you ask me, do they have a right? To me, that question, I translate that the question in my head is that should it be illegal for them to not spread their values in the United States? And well, because, and it's not just secularism, by the way, it's also United States is has the most aggressive free speech values in the world, which I love. That means good ideas and bad ideas also have the right to spread, to make their values part of United States, mix of values that basically influence society. So Christianity has a right, Judaism has a right, Islam has a right, communism has that right, Nazism even has that right. But the values in United States that I celebrate the most, and I think is the dominance of those values that has made United States the greatest country on earth, is the Enlightenment values that came out of mostly France and Europe. And even though they came out of France and Europe, it's United States that actually, made them, enforced them, and actually made them put them into practice. Like both France and UK have betrayed those ideas. And to tell you, I don't want to be vague here. So when I say Enlightenment values, these are the values that I talk about that I think has made United States the greatest country on the planet. These are classical liberal values. So these are separations of power, secularism, representative democracy, freedom of speech and freedom of expression, free trade, free markets, respect for fundamental human rights, property rights, respect for the scientific method, freedom of assembly, respect for rule of law, civic nationalism, individualism and individual liberty, and equality under the law. These are the list of values that I think has been the most influential in making United States a great country.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate you answering. I disagree with you on a few points, but we just need to go on and let other people have an opportunity to talk.
Yep.
Yeah, apparently I'm more of an atheist than you are, Armin. In my worldview, the purpose of truth is pragmatic, to be able to make a prediction, navigate the world, and take actions. So, as it pertains to Russell's teapot, both my current theory of the world and my theory, plus the extra belief that there's a teapot orbiting the sun, make exactly the same predictions and cause me to act in the same way. But one theory is computationally simpler. So if I observe that every star that I look at has a teapot orbiting it, but I can't tell the same thing about the sun, then maybe this default assumption would flip. But otherwise, any theory that fails Occam's razor and doesn't compensate somehow with new predictions is not eligible to be true. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's, wait, how is that different from what I said? So you're using
Well,
Occam's razor. Occam's razor shows that the most simple explanation is the most likely one. It doesn't say that it is the 100%. It's
then
it's basically a probability statement. It's a probability statement. It's not a statement of certainty.
Okay, then maybe I mean a slightly different principle. I'm saying that if two theories make the same predictions, but one of them is easier for me just to navigate computationally, then I will always prefer the simpler one and just
Yeah.
call that the truth.
Yeah, so I prefer the simpler one as well, and I will also call that the truth. That's how pragmatically makes sense to just go with that. But again, that is you're pragmatically treating something that is very probable the same as certain. But that's for pragmatic reasons. You're not actually making the claim that that's certain, but it makes pragmatic sense. So if, for me, if something is 99.9999% chance has a chance to be true, I'm going to treat it as if it's 100% true, because that makes sense. Like, I'm not going to go through life, you know, making the distinction between something that is only 99.99% true and 100% true. I'm just going to treat it like 100%. But that's you being pragmatic. But it
I,
is still true that it's not 100%. Yeah.
I think we're saying the same thing, but also I would say that anything that is unfalsifiable is the same as being false.
For pragmatic reasons. Mathematically, that's not the case, but for pragmatic reasons, we will treat it as if it's false. Right?
I don't know that the universe exists mathematically, like other than pragmatic truth.
Pragmatic truth as a human centric perspective of looking at the universe is math.
Well, we're
When you say
already
when you say pragmatic, we're like, that's a human centric perspective. The universe centric perspective is math. Pragmatism is a human centric perspective.
I don't see that a word like exist can be mathematically defined.
How else would you evaluate?
Like
We're
I
talking about probabilities, and when you talk about Occam's razor, you're talking about probabilities, and the only way to talk about probability is with math.
yes, I'm with you.